Alpine Touch has been a staple of Montana for nearly 8 decades. Folks around the Treasure State have been putting Alpine Touch's world-famous all-purpose seasoning on their steaks and burgers for longer than most of us have been alive. The holidays are coming up. If you want to knock everyone's socks off, be sure to pick up some Alpine Touch Cold Smoke Rub for the best flavor for your Thanksgiving turkey or your Christmas prime rib. Alpine Touch comes in the mail right to your door. Just visit alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Riding with Ryder back for another weekend, not quite the last week, but we're getting close to it because the national championship game is coming down the pipe. We are, as we record this on Monday, December 30th, a week away. Mike Ryder, former Bobcat player and coach, joining us like he has each week throughout the 2024 football season. Mikey, thanks for being here, man. How you doing?
Hey, doing good, Colter. Thanks for having me. It's an exciting week, man. We're getting close, and I'm fired up for Frisco already.
To me, I think fitting and symbolic and almost perfect that the opponent for Montana State is North Dakota State, because this has been part of the history of Bobcat lore, not just in the recent times in the FCS days, but going back to the Division II days. I mean, probably the biggest win of Sonny Holland's career during all of his great times leading the Cats was in the Grantland Rice Bowl of the semifinals of the Division II playoffs to go to the national championship. And then they won the Natty, that was their first sort of big school national championship. And that was against North Dakota State back in 1976. So these schools have crossed over a ton, but it's been the Goliath that's haunted Montana State for the last 15 years. And I think that's why it's so fitting that these guys get another shot at this, because not just this era of guys, but all the way go back to even your senior year. I mean, North Dakota State is the team that knocks Montana State out of the playoffs every single year, it seems like. So kind of cool, kind of fitting these guys get one last shot at NDSU.
Yeah, it's interesting just to look at the whole lineup of shots that the Cats have gotten at NDSU. And as you mentioned, it's my senior year, and how we matched up and the level of physicality that they brought, especially in the fourth quarter. And then you start looking at all these games. I remember going out to Fargo and watching, I think it was Choate's first or second year when they got beat out there. And then just all of the shots that they've had at them, and to see the progression of the Montana State program, and call it what you want. It's the blueprint looks just like what they've done at North Dakota State. And so it's interesting to see now the physicality and and the style of play, specifically on offense and defense too, but running the football obviously helps when you got a guy like Brent Vegan that's been there and lived in Fargo. So just really interesting to see, rising tides make all boats rise. And Montana State has been a beneficiary of how North Dakota State has built their program. And so fun to see that. And, as I'm looking on paper right now, Colter, I was looking at all the stats that Sam Herder puts out. He does a great job there, Hero Sports, right? And just looking at that true side by side, just interesting to look at where Montana State is. And it'll be a fun matchup, because Montana State has worked hard to get to right where they're at, mimicking what North Dakota State and South Dakota State have done. And they're there. They are there. And it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out on January 6th.
The thing that I was thinking about the other day is North Dakota State's dominance, just the existence of the dominance over the last 15 years absolutely has set the pace for the FCS. It set the standard. And everybody knows, hey, you're not going to win the national championship unless you can beat these guys, and these guys don't lose. These guys have lost 15 games in 15 years. So that's the standard. But I think it's even accelerated and accentuated in Montana, because Montana and Montana State have been playing the Big Sky Conference since 1963. They were ahead of North Dakota State and South Dakota State and these other schools in terms of getting to Division I and having prestige in a conference. And no offense to the North Central Conference, that's a great league back in the day, and NDSU won that thing 100 times in a row or whatever. But Montana State, the perception was they had the big shiny toys and the stadiums and the fans and all this stuff long before NDSU made this rise. And then NDSU did it, and when they did it, it just became this unbelievable sustainable monster. And
Yeah.
I think that's been a thorn in the sides of both Bobcat and Grizz people. Like, hey, how these guys come in here and win 9 national championships when we've
So true.
gotten 3 or whatever combined between the Cats and the Grizz since the 1AA era. So I don't know. I was just thinking about that the other day because it's not only so impressive how sustainable it's been, but how fast it happened and how they just took over so many of these other schools that had such a huge head start on them.
Yeah. It's so interesting you say that, man, because even in my senior year, 2010, right? You're 14 years ago. And I guess even 2 years prior, I think it was maybe 3 years or four, but North Dakota State came to Montana State. I think they were still D2 at that time, Colter, right?
I think they were transitioning, yeah.
Were they
Like when
transitioning? Okay, so
when Lulay had to pull it out his senior year, I think that was their last D2 year. And then they were in like this random conference. It was like the Gateway Conference or something like that. And they weren't
right.
really playoff eligible yet. It was like an FCS transitioning time in the late 2000s. I know North Dakota State people are going to listen to this and they're going to be leaving comments on this video right now. But yes,
Well,
they weren't in
sorry
the
in
Missouri
advance.
they weren't in the Missouri Valley quite yet, but they were in that transitioning time, I think.
Yeah, I remember. I think Bobby Davy had a pick six in that game. I remember. I think he was a freshman. I think starting. So regardless, just interesting because I have the perspective of like uh, in 2010. We get a bye, and we were a good team. I don't know that we were great. We had a really good quarterback in Daenerys McGee, and our defense was okay. We weren't anything spectacular, definitely not in comparison to some of these late teams. But I do remember uh, just thinking like, yeah, I didn't know anything about North Dakota State, and again, probably, and now we do, but very arrogantly, you look at Montana State, it was like this measuring stick. And behind us in North Dakota, they're in South Dakota, they're like growing these monsters. And all of a sudden I saw some of it in 2010, because believe me, I was on the field in the fourth quarter against North Dakota State. We were winning against NDSU in the fourth quarter in 2010, and they took over the game and they punched us in the mouth over and over and over again. And there's nothing that we could do about it. And that's my last memory of playing football. And so I saw that, and then you're like, yeah, they're really, really good. They go on the next week, they lose to Eastern Washington in a thriller, and then Eastern Washington wins out. So it's kind of like, well, we got punched in the face. We beat Eastern. But yeah, that NDSU team, really, really salty. And then turn around and they run the table for however many years in a row. And you're like, we have been so focused on what's going on in the Big Sky Conference, we didn't look over to our neighbors to the east, and they are growing this monster. And here we are today. It's just so funny to see the whole longevity, the whole picture of the last 14 years. And I tip my cap to both NDSU and SDSU, what they built, and it's just exciting. This is what makes FCS football so much fun.
I got the North Dakota State football Wikipedia. So they actually transitioned to Division I 2004. So they were in that Great West Conference '04
Yep.
to 2007. And then they were one of the founding members of the Missouri Valley Football Conference, them in South Dakota State. But they left South Dakota and North Dakota sort of outside looking in during that time. And then that Great West was just Cal Poly, North Dakota, UC Davis, and Southern Utah.
Southern Utah. I
That's
remember that. Yes.
and that's when the Big Sky said, "Oh, you guys should come join with us. If they won't let you play with them, you should come play with us." And then North Dakota had that whole sort of weird time in the Big Sky, right? They're
Yep. I
not
was a
playing
part of
any of
that
their
one.
rivals, but
Totally.
they were pretty good. Like so, yeah,
Yep.
interesting little history there. The other thing is so often with like this program building, you have to have these failures before you take this next step, and that's exactly what this Montana State team has done this year. That NDSU team in 2010 was, I mean, they were a pretty good team during the regular season, but they had to go on the road the first round of the playoffs. But then they went on that little spurt and they lost Eastern Washington. And then after that, they didn't lose another playoff game for like 15 years. It's crazy, just like the tipping point that they had, and then to be able to keep it rolling like that. But you're right. I think they really did. I think they shifted the way that people think about FCS football too, because Division One
Oh
AA
yeah.
for most of the 80s and 90s was run and gun, air it out. Montana was a little bit more ground and pound in the 2000s, but still, balanced type of offenses. And those teams didn't win as many national championships as they honestly probably should have when Bobby Hauck was at his peak there. But then since NDSU took this over, you saw teams like Eastern that had so much success throwing the ball all over the place. They would just get put in the meat grinder and just get killed by the time they would roll into December. And everybody, including even Eastern a little bit, changed the way that they played and recruited because of the way that the style that North Dakota State has won with these last 15 years.
Yeah, you're spot on. And everybody is, you can say it's not the truth, but everybody is trying to mimic what NDSU has done. And so you have to, you just got to tip your cap to that, because they have, and you're stupid to not try and do it that way. I mean, you look at the FBS level, everybody's doing the same thing. How do I look at Nick Saban, what he does in his program, take the tools and everything that I've got and the people that I have and the landscape and the support and the boosters and the recruiting, put it all together and say, how can I best mimic what they've got going on there in Tuscaloosa, Alabama? And, Montana State has done the exact same thing. They just happen to have one of the guys that was right in the, in the dance as NDSU was creating all this momentum, and the guy in Brent Began who saw firsthand what it looked like and what it took. Again, you parallel that with what's going on in Alabama. That's why so many of these coaches at Alabama, they've been at Alabama and then they've left to try and duplicate it, right? Dan Lanning, Mario Cristobal, Kirby Smart, right? These are all guys that saw what it took, and they're trying to recreate it themselves. And so it's not as easy as it probably sounds, but all in all, NDSU is the program that people are trying to build themselves after. And you can say it, that that's not the case, but you'd be a liar. SDSU's been doing the same thing, and they found a way to kind of come above them a little bit for the last couple of years. Montana State's been trying to do the same thing and haven't been able to crack the code, however many times in a row. Montana beat them last year, but have been inconsistent at best over the last handful of years. And I can tell you, they're looking at NDSU to say, how do we recreate that? Because we've got a lot of the ingredients, but what are we missing?
Are you paying too much in taxes? Elevated Tax and Accounting is a firm that specializes in tax planning and strategy to minimize your tax bill. Elevated Tax consult with you on tax strategy throughout the year, so no more waiting until the end of the year and hoping for the best. As a business owner, you know your sole focus should be spent working on your business, not in it. Outsourcing gives you the time to concentrate on the core reasons you started your company, to create and innovate a top-tier product and generate profits. Elevated Tax and Accounting, elevating you and your business with a modern professional touch.
Bobcats win again.
So, fifth quarter at the R Bar?
Dude, I could crush a burger right now. Can you guys pick it up? I'm thirsty back here. Guys, what's up? Hop on in. Fifth quarter's this way.
Oh, new R Bar merch.
Yo, what's the fifth quarter?
They have food, drinks, and giveaways after every home game.
And these sweet Bobcat cups.
Oh, I'm in.
Take me to the R Bar.
Join us at the Rocking R Bar after every home game for the fifth quarter.
Let's celebrate the spirit of blue and gold.
Ridin with Ryder, presented by Rockin' R Bar. They're helping sponsor our road to Frisco. Appreciate the Rockin' R. You need a place to watch the game? Go check out Rockin' R Bar downtown Bozeman. They're giving away a free TV next Monday leading up to the national championship game. So a great place to go hang out with fellow Bobcats and also get a chance to win yourself a big screen. Thanks to the Rockin' R Bar for their support of our road to Frisco. All right. Couple things for you, and then we'll get you out of here. It's been so interesting too to see people try to replicate the North Dakota State thing with the offensive lines. Easier said than done, obviously. The defensive fronts, easier said than done. But the trump card that North Dakota State's always had is they've always had a first-team All-American, like first-round draft pick quarterback, yep. Which even if they don't lean on them all the way throughout the year, then when it gets to the point where that's the matchup they need, then we've seen guys like Carson Wentz and Easton Stick look like the best player in the FCS during these playoff runs and national championship games. That's what's so interesting about this matchup to me, though, is you have the two best quarterbacks in the country going at it. And I think that's the number one factor that gives Montana State a fighting chance. We talk about this being a fitting matchup with NDSU. It's also a fitting narrative that people have talked about how the only way the Cats are going to get over the top is if they have elite quarterback play. The only way the Cats are going to get over the top is if Tommy Mellott becomes one of the best players in the country. Well, he has. And now this matchup's going to come down to how does he play? And if he plays like he can, I mean, holy cow, what a story that would be. Because I really think the way that the game is going to go back and forth, it's going to come down to which quarterback plays better.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I'm looking at these stats from Sam Herder, and I was just kind of looking at this the last couple of days, because both offenses are super capable. It's to me who is going to be smart with the football, right? And I think these teams are going to do what they do best. And it's going to be a matchup of quarterbacks, absolutely. But then you really do have to flip on the other side to look at both sides of the ball, because you would look at both sides, both teams rather, and say the defense is probably the weaker of the side of the football for both teams, and that's without a doubt. So as you look at that, well, what defense is going to show up and find a way to create some turnovers? Because NDSU has done a really good job as far as turnovers are concerned, and turnover margin. And so you do have to look on the defensive side of the ball to say who's going to step up. And it may come down to who's got the ball last type deal. But interesting matchup across the board. Fun to see two really high caliber FCS teams, and specifically at the quarterback position to see who can outduel one. But gosh, they're both quality teams, and both have got experience on this stage. MSU not as much as NDSU does, that's for certain. But all in all, I love the matchup. I think the stats are pretty interesting as you look at it and the rankings and everything like that. But the defenses have got to capitalize and see if they can force some turnovers, get off the field on third downs, limit explosive plays, all the things that defensive coordinators talk about.
The coaching matchup in this one, Brett Vigen's been here before. Tim Polasek has not as a head coach. He's been there before,
right,
times as an assistant coach. Do you think that plays? Does Vigen haven't done this before? And also, do you think the fact that Vigen's name was out there for the last couple of weeks as potentially leaving, and now he's not leaving, do you think that gives the Bobcats a boost?
Yeah, I don't even know. I can't speak to his name being out in the job, stratosphere with Washington State and some of those. I think how does that affect it? I'm not sure. But I have thought about the coaching matchup, and Vigen has been there, quite a few times. Polasek has not. He's been there as an assistant as well. But I also, Coach Vigen was the offensive coordinator, and I think Polasek was he was a running backs coach or tight ends coach or something like that. So, probably learned a lot from Coach Vigen. I always like that interesting matchup of teacher and pupil. Like, what does that look like? But I think what it comes down to is who can get you guys to execute the best, the highest level, and that's down in and down out. And I think it's just going to be interesting to see. I mean, there couldn't be a tighter game as far as on paper, and what the style of play are so similar. It's a fascinating matchup. And to me, it feels like one of those matchups that we've all witnessed at the FBS level. And you're like, boy, Georgia and Alabama are playing for the national championship. What is that going to look like? Well, you got two guys that are trying to do it the exact same way. They've got freak athletes all over the place, and they're going to play physical, defense and offense. The trenches are going to be absolutely dominant and physical all game. Quarterback plays at a really high level. So you've got to start looking at some of these things. What is special teams going to mean, right? That's got to be a huge piece to it. And then turnovers and explosive plays. So, so much to look forward to. It's going to be a fascinating football game. I hope everybody can stay healthy, both specifically the quarterbacks, so that we can see what we've all been wanting to see and let these guys slug it out.
For sure. It's so funny, too, because there's been such a narrative about Tommy Mellott helping keep himself healthy this year, and that's been such a huge part of Montana State's success. And he definitely is less reckless than he used to be. But that 2021 injury was just a freak thing. That wasn't Tommy being reckless. He just got rolled up on the wrong way, and like that stuff that sucks when that happens in big games like that.
Yeah, it totally does. And then, the last couple of years, I feel like the field hasn't been great, Colter, down there.
Totally.
I'm interested to see, like, boy, I hope they've got that figured out, because that's ridiculous, man. You got a national championship on the line, and again, I'm not saying that would have been a game changer, 3 years ago, but it was really, really bad. How was it last year? Do you remember?
It was good last year. It was really nice weather last year. I mean, it was in like the high 50s. It was sunny, beautiful day. So, it was certainly better last year for sure. Yeah.
Well, that stuff does play into account, I'm sure, as well. But I want both teams to be healthy, and again, this is what it all comes down to. I'm excited to be there and catch it in person, and I'm driving down to Denver actually to jump in and jump on a flight with former roommate, running back teammate Blade Beck said that'll be fun. So we're going to take that in together. It'll be a little road trip for the boys.
Nice. Well, it should be a good time, and we can't wait for it either. Anything else to add on this game before we get you out of here?
No, I'm excited. I just appreciate you having me on all season, and I'm fired up to see how this thing shakes out. It's got a totally different feeling than it did 3 years ago. You're happy to be there. I feel like even as fans, I could sense that the win over South Dakota versus the win 3 years ago against South Dakota State. Boy, the place erupted 3 years ago, and it was awesome at Bobcat Stadium. And it was electric 2 weeks ago as well. But there was like an expectant attitude amongst like fans and players. It was kind of interesting to watch. So I think this is what Montana State's built for, and I'm excited to see if they can't find a way to slay the dragon and get over the hurdle of North Dakota State, and hopefully everybody's healthy and they got all the weapons to do it.
Should be fun. Riding with Ryder, National Championship game preview. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Go Cats.
Big Sky Breakdown, proudly presented by the Bobcat Collective at Montana State. The Bobcat Collective is the NIL collective that serves Montana State University student athletes. The collective is partnered with Montana State to connect fans, alumni, businesses, and local nonprofits with Montana State student athletes. Opportunities through the collective allow student athletes to earn compensation while serving the greater Montana State University community. Sign up now for memberships and enjoy automatic entry into raffles for free tickets while supporting the bright minds at Montana State. They have multiple different membership tiers, and you can also be a one-time supporter, and you can also business partner or corporate supporter. Visit bobcatcollective.com for more.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.